I watched my sister Nadia get screamed at by a billionaire for 10 minutes straight, and I thought her life was over. This wasn't just any rich guy having a bad day. This was Rashid Al-Mansouri, worth $2.3 billion, standing in our hotel lobby tearing my 22-year-old sister apart in front of everyone. Hotel guests had their phones out recording. My manager was already reaching for his walkie-talkie to call security. Nadia's hands were shaking, tears forming in her eyes, and this man just kept going, switching between English and Arabic, his voice echoing off the marble walls like thunder. I'm standing there frozen, watching my little sister's career get destroyed in real time, knowing that one word from me could get us both fired. Nadia had only been working at the Grand Meridian Hotel for 3 weeks as a guest relations coordinator. This was her first real job after college, the one she desperately needed to help Mom pay the bills after Dad left us. She'd been so excited about it, coming home every night telling me about the different guests she'd helped, practicing her customer service smile in the mirror. But right now, none of that mattered. Right now, she looked like a deer caught in headlights, apologizing over and over while this powerful man towered over her, his face red with rage, his $5,000 suit wrinkled from his furious gestures. He was threatening to sue the hotel, destroy our reputation, make sure she never worked in hospitality again. The lobby had gone completely silent except for his voice and the soft click of camera phones. Then something incredible happened. Something I still can't fully believe even though I saw it with my own eyes. My quiet, studious little sister who'd spent her whole life avoiding confrontation, who'd rather fail a class than argue with a professor, took a deep breath and said 5 words in perfect Arabic that made this $2 billion man stop mid-sentence, drop his phone, and stare at her like she'd just performed a miracle. What she said wasn't just words. It was something deeper, something that reached past his anger and touched something raw and vulnerable inside him. In 10 seconds, she went from victim to the most powerful person in that room, and I'm about to tell you exactly how she did it. Let me back up and tell you how we got here, because understanding my sister means understanding what this job meant to our family. The Grand Meridian Hotel sits in the heart of downtown Chicago, 43 floors of glass and marble that cater to people who think nothing of spending more on one night than most families make in a month. I'd been working there for 2 years in event management when Nadia graduated from Northwestern with a degree in international relations and absolutely no idea what to do with it. Our family had been falling apart since Dad decided his midlife crisis was more important than his marriage. Mom, Amira, went from being a stay-at-home wife to a 45-year-old woman trying to find work after 20 years out of the job market. The divorce left us with a mountain of legal bills, and Mom working double shifts at a nursing home just to keep our childhood house. Nadia's student loans were crushing her. $60,000 that felt like a death sentence when every job she applied for wanted 5 years of experience she didn't have. When the guest relations position opened up at the Meridian, I practically begged my manager to consider her. The pay was decent, the benefits were real, and it would give her experience in international business. More importantly, it was our lifeline. Between my salary and hers, we could finally help Mom get back on her feet and maybe, just maybe, start feeling like a family again instead of 3 people drowning separately. Nadia threw herself into that job like her life depended on it, because honestly, it did. She studied every VIP guest profile, memorized dietary restrictions and cultural preferences, stayed late to make sure every detail was perfect. But she was nervous, constantly second-guessing herself, apologizing for things that weren't even mistakes. In her first 3 weeks, she'd already had 2 small incidents that had management keeping a closer eye on her. A mix-up with room service times for a Japanese business delegation. Forgetting to arrange transportation for a senator's wife. Nothing major, but enough to make her jumpy. I watched her from across departments. This brilliant woman who spoke 4 languages fluently, but couldn't find the courage to speak up when a coworker took credit for her ideas. Nadia had always been the academic star of our family, the one who got scholarships and made honor roll, but she'd never learned how to advocate for herself. She was the type of person who would research a culture for hours before interacting with international guests, who could recite historical facts about every country our VIP clients came from, but who would rather fail than risk confrontation. This obsession with cultural understanding started in college when she became friends with exchange students from all over the world. Her roommate's sophomore year was Layla, a Lebanese girl whose family had immigrated to Detroit when she was young. Nadia spent countless hours learning about Middle Eastern culture, practicing Arabic phrases, understanding the nuances of hospitality traditions that went back centuries. Our grandmother, Teta Rosa, used to say that Nadia had an ear for languages and a heart for understanding people, which sounds sweet until you realize it meant she absorbed everyone else's emotions like a sponge. The weekend that changed everything was supposed to be routine. Memorial Day weekend, our busiest time of year, when Chicago fills with tourists and business travelers taking advantage of the long weekend for meetings and celebrations. Nadia had been assigned to handle VIP services, which meant managing our most demanding and wealthy clients. She was terrified but determined to prove herself. Then Rashid Al-Mansouri's reservation came across her desk. Lebanese-American real estate mogul, net worth that could buy a small country, booking our entire penthouse level for a merger celebration that would make him one of America's 50 richest men. The kind of client who could make or break a hotel's reputation with a single phone call. The kind of client who expected perfection and had the power to destroy careers when he didn't get it. Nadia spent days preparing for his arrival, coordinating with caterers, florists, technology specialists, making sure every single detail aligned with his cultural preferences and business needs. She researched Lebanese hospitality customs, studied his previous hotel stays, even called other properties where he'd stayed to understand his expectations. She thought she was ready for anything. She had no idea she was about to face the most important 10 minutes of her life. Everything that could go wrong started going wrong at exactly 2:47 p.m. on Saturday afternoon. I know the exact time because I was watching the lobby security cameras from my office when Rashid Al-Mansouri's black Bentley pulled up to our valet station. He stepped out looking like he owned the world, which honestly, he kind of did. Expensive suit, confident stride, the kind of presence that made other people automatically step aside. The first disaster hit before he even reached the front desk. The Lebanese restaurant we'd contracted for his merger celebration catering called in a panic. Their kitchen had caught fire that morning during prep. Not a small fire, not something they could work around. A full evacuation, fire department response, everything destroyed kind of fire. They were calling every high-end Middle Eastern restaurant in Chicago trying to find a replacement. But Memorial Day weekend meant everyone was already booked solid. Nadia took that call while Rashid was checking in upstairs. I watched her face go pale as she frantically started making backup plans, calling restaurant after restaurant, getting the same answer over and over. No availability. No exceptions. She was literally holding the phone with one hand and researching Lebanese caterers 3 states away with the other, sweat starting to form on her forehead, despite the hotel's perfect air conditioning. Then the penthouse smart home system crashed. This wasn't just inconvenient, this was catastrophic. The entire 43rd floor was controlled by one integrated system that managed everything from the temperature to the lights to the entertainment systems. Without it, Rashid would be staying in a $40,000 per night suite that felt like an expensive cave. Our technology team was scrambling, but the system needed to be completely rebooted, which meant at least 4 hours without climate control, music, or even the automated curtains that opened to showcase Chicago's skyline. But the final straw, the thing that sent everything spiraling into disaster, was the flowers. Rashid had specifically requested white jasmine arrangements throughout the penthouse. Not roses, not lilies, not any of the dozen other white flowers that would have been easier to source. White jasmine, and he'd been very clear about this during the booking process. Nadia had confirmed this request 3 times with our florist, had it written in her notes in bold letters, had even sent a follow-up email the day before. The florist delivered roses, cheap, generic white roses that you could buy at any grocery store. When Nadia called to ask what happened, they claimed there had been a miscommunication, that jasmine was too expensive and they'd assumed roses would be acceptable. They offered to try to find Jasmine, but it would take at least 2 days and cost triple the agreed price. I was in the elevator heading down to help when I heard the shouting start. The elevator doors opened on the lobby level, and Rashid's voice hit me like a physical force. He wasn't just angry, he was absolutely furious, the kind of rage that made other people in the lobby stop their conversations and stare. His voice carried across the marble floors, echoing off the high ceilings as he tore into my sister in front of everyone. "This is completely unacceptable. I am paying $40,000 a night and you cannot even get flowers right." His accent got thicker as he got angrier, switching between English and Arabic in a way that made him seem even more intimidating. "Do you have any idea what this weekend means to me? What these celebrations are for?" Nadia stood there taking it, her customer service training kicking in as she tried to apologize and offer solutions. "Mr. Al-Manswari, I sincerely apologize for these issues. I'm personally working to resolve every single problem. I can drive to 3 different florists right now and find white jasmine if you'll just give me a chance to fix this." But he wasn't listening. Hotel guests were pulling out their phones, recording this public meltdown. My manager appeared at my shoulder, his face grim as he assessed the situation. This was the kind of incident that ended careers, that got hotels sued, that destroyed reputations in the age of social media. "You have ruined the most important business celebration of my life." Rashid's voice cracked with emotion that went deeper than anger. "These flowers were not decoration. They were for my mother's memory, and you have completely destroyed everything." That's when I realized this wasn't really about catering or technology or even customer service. This was about something much deeper, something personal that we'd accidentally stepped on, and my sister was about to pay the price for all of it. Rashid was done. He pulled out his phone with the kind of decisive movement that said this conversation was over, that my sister's career was finished, that our family's financial lifeline was about to get cut. His finger was already moving toward the screen to call what I assumed were either his lawyers or the hotel's corporate office, probably both. In about 30 seconds, Nadia would be unemployed and blacklisted from every decent hotel in the city. But then something changed in my sister's face. I'd been watching her from across the lobby, feeling sick to my stomach as this powerful man destroyed her in front of everyone. For 10 minutes, she'd looked exactly like what she was, a 22-year-old kid way out of her depth, trying to apologize her way out of an impossible situation. Her hands had been shaking, her voice getting smaller with each failed attempt to calm him down. Now suddenly she looked different. Her hands stopped shaking, her shoulders straightened. The apologetic expression melted away, replaced by something I'd never seen on her face before. Not anger, not defiance, but a kind of quiet certainty that made her seem older, more grounded. It was like watching someone step into themselves for the first time. She took one deep breath, the kind that comes from your chest instead of your throat, and I realized she'd made some kind of decision. Not the decision to give up or to keep apologizing or to let this man walk away after humiliating her. Something else entirely. While Rashid scrolled through his contacts, probably looking for the number that would end her career, Nadia was thinking. I could see it happening, the way her eyes moved slightly as she processed something. She was remembering, connecting dots that the rest of us couldn't see. Her college friend Layla had told her stories, shared parts of her culture that went deeper than language or customs. Stories about grief, about mothers, about the weight of carrying family honor and memory. The white jasmine flowers weren't just decoration. Rashid hadn't said they were for his mother's memory by accident or as an excuse to justify his anger. In Lebanese culture, white jasmine represents pure love, eternal devotion, the connection between the living and the dead. When someone requests white jasmine for a celebration, especially a man celebrating a major business achievement, it means they're honoring someone who can't be there to celebrate with them. Nadia had understood something the rest of us missed. This wasn't a spoiled billionaire throwing a tantrum about flowers. This was a son trying to include his deceased mother in the biggest moment of his professional life, and we'd accidentally dishonored that intention with grocery store roses. The lobby had gone quieter, that awful kind of silence that happens when everyone knows they're witnessing something uncomfortable, but can't look away. Hotel guests were still recording. My manager was still standing tensely behind me, and Rashid was still scrolling through his phone with the focused intensity of someone about to destroy careers. That's when Nadia stepped forward. Not toward the front desk where she'd been standing, not toward me or my manager for backup, but directly toward Rashid Al-Mansouri. She moved with a confidence that seemed to come from nowhere, walking across those marble floors like she belonged there, like she had every right to approach one of the most powerful men in the room. She wasn't going to let him leave. She wasn't going to accept that this situation was unfixable or that her career was over. She was going to do something that went against every instinct she'd developed over 22 years of avoiding confrontation, of letting other people take credit, of apologizing for things that weren't her fault. She was going to speak to him not as a hotel employee to a guest, not as a young woman to an older man, not as someone powerless to someone powerful. She was going to speak to him as one human being who understood loss to another human being carrying grief. The entire lobby seemed to hold its breath as she opened her mouth. Even Rashid looked up from his phone, probably expecting another desperate apology or a final attempt at damage control. Instead, what came out was something none of us expected, something that would change everything in the space of 5 words. The words came out of my sister's mouth in perfect, fluent Arabic, carrying across the marble lobby with a clarity that made everyone freeze. I don't speak Arabic, but even I could hear the tenderness in those syllables, the way they seemed to wrap around something fragile and precious. Rashid's phone slipped from his fingers and clattered on the floor, the sharp sound echoing in the sudden silence. His entire body went rigid, like he'd been struck by lightning. The anger that had been radiating from him for the past 10 minutes vanished instantly, replaced by something raw and vulnerable that made him look like a completely different person. He turned around slowly, his eyes wide with shock, staring at my 22-year-old sister like she'd just spoken directly to his soul. When he opened his mouth, his voice came out as barely more than a whisper. "You speak my language." Nadia nodded, her own voice soft but steady as she responded in Arabic. I found out later what she said. "I speak the language of loss. I know about mothers who watch over us and the flowers that honor them." The transformation in Rashid was immediate and complete. This man who had been towering over everyone in the lobby, whose presence had commanded attention and fear, suddenly looked smaller, more human. Tears started forming in his eyes as he stared at Nadia with a mixture of disbelief and recognition. "How did you know?" he asked, still in Arabic, his voice cracking with emotion. "Because when someone gets that angry about flowers," Nadia replied, switching back to English so everyone could understand, "it's never really about flowers. My grandmother died last year and white jasmine was her flower too. She taught me that some things are too sacred to get wrong." That's when Rashid completely broke down. This billionaire, this powerful businessman who could buy and sell companies with a phone call, started crying in the middle of our hotel lobby. Not angry tears or frustrated tears, but the deep, grieving tears of someone who'd been carrying pain for too long. "Today marks 2 years," he said, his voice thick with emotion. 2 years since my mother passed away. This merger, this celebration, it was supposed to honor her memory. She always said that success means nothing if you don't remember where you came from, who sacrificed to get you there. The entire lobby had gone completely silent. Hotel guests who had been recording the confrontation were now witnessing something much more intimate and powerful. Even my manager, who I'd expected to step in and manage this crisis, was standing perfectly still, recognizing that something profound was happening. Nadia stepped closer to Rashid, her voice gentle but confident. "Your mother is watching you now, and she's proud of everything you've accomplished. But she would want you to celebrate with love in your heart, not anger. Let me help you honor her properly." Rashid wiped his eyes, looking embarrassed but also relieved, like he'd been holding his breath for 2 years and could finally exhale. "I haven't spoken to anyone about her in months. My family thinks I should be over it by now. Business partners don't want to hear about grief. But when you said those words, when you said she was watching, it was like hearing her voice again." "She never stopped watching," Nadia said simply. "And she wouldn't want this weekend to be about anger or disappointment. She'd want it to be about joy, about the son she raised achieving something incredible. Rashid looked around the lobby, seeming to realize for the first time that dozens of people had witnessed his breakdown. Instead of looking embarrassed, he straightened his shoulders and spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. I owe this young woman an apology. In Arabic, we have a saying. Arabic meme, Arabic noon, Arabic tain, Arabic rot, Arabic fa, Arabic khalif, Arabic lam, Arabic het, Arabic zain, Arabic noon, Arabic tain, Arabic rot, Arabic fa, Arabic khalif, Arabic lam, Arabic calf, Arabic lam, Arabic wow, Arabic ba. Those who know sorrow know hearts. This woman understood something I had forgotten about myself. He turned back to Nadia, his eyes still wet but no longer angry. I would be honored if you would help me make this weekend a proper celebration of my mother's memory. And I promise you, no matter what problems we encounter, we will solve them together with respect and kindness. The lobby erupted in spontaneous applause. My sister had just turned a career-ending disaster into something beautiful, and everyone there knew they'd witnessed something special. What happened next still gives me chills. Rashid didn't just apologize and move on. He pulled out his checkbook right there in the lobby and wrote Nadia a tip for $10,000. $10,000. More money than our family had seen in one place since before Dad left. But that wasn't even the most incredible part. He spent the next hour on his phone, not calling lawyers or corporate executives to complain, but calling every contact he had in Chicago to find white jasmine flowers. He reached out to botanical gardens, specialty importers, even other hotels, using his influence not to destroy careers, but to honor his mother's memory properly. By evening, the penthouse was filled with the most beautiful white jasmine arrangements I'd ever seen, flown in from a specialty greenhouse in California at his personal expense. The merger celebration that weekend became something magical. Instead of the cold, corporate event it was originally planned to be, it turned into a genuine celebration of family, legacy, and remembrance. Rashid invited Nadia to attend as his personal guest, and he spent part of the evening telling stories about his mother to anyone who would listen. He talked about how she had immigrated to America with nothing, how she had worked 3 jobs to put him through school, how she had always reminded him that success without compassion was just expensive emptiness. But the real transformation happened in my sister. Over the following weeks, I watched Nadia become someone I'd never seen before. She started speaking up in staff meetings, offering ideas for cultural sensitivity training that could help the hotel better serve international guests. She proposed creating guest profiles that included not just dietary restrictions and business preferences, but cultural customs and family traditions that might be important during special occasions. Management didn't just listen to her ideas, they promoted her. Within 2 months, she was heading up a new department focused on cultural liaison services. Her salary doubled, and suddenly our family's financial crisis wasn't a crisis anymore. Mom, Amira, was able to quit one of her jobs and start taking night classes to get her real estate license, something she'd always wanted to do. But the most important change was in how Nadia saw herself. She realized that her empathy, her ability to understand different cultures, her sensitivity to other people's emotions weren't weaknesses that made her too soft for the business world. They were superpowers that could bridge gaps between people who seemed to have nothing in common. 6 months later, Rashid offered her a position as Director of Cultural Relations for his international business empire. The starting salary was 3 times what she was making at the hotel, with opportunities to travel the world and help facilitate business relationships across cultures. It was the kind of job she'd dreamed about in college, but never thought she was qualified for. She turned it down, not because she didn't want it, but because she'd found something even more valuable at the Meridian. She'd found her purpose, her confidence, and her voice. She discovered that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stay where you are and transform the place around you. The story of what happened in our lobby that day spread through Chicago's hospitality industry. Other hotels started reaching out to Nadia for consulting on cultural sensitivity. She began speaking at industry conferences about the importance of understanding grief, loss, and cultural traditions in customer service. She even started teaching basic Arabic phrases to our hotel staff, not just the words, but the emotional context behind them. Rashid became a regular guest, but more than that, he became a friend to our family. He credited Nadia with helping him process his grief in a healthy way, with teaching him that vulnerability wasn't weakness but connection. He started a scholarship fund for students studying international relations, specifically focused on cultural understanding in business. Watching my sister that day taught me something I'll never forget. I'd always thought I needed to protect her, that she was too gentle for a harsh world. But she wasn't gentle, she was wise. She wasn't weak, she was patient. She wasn't avoiding confrontation, she was waiting for the moment when her words could heal instead of hurt. My sister taught a billionaire that the most expensive thing in the world isn't money, it's understanding. And that night, watching her speak Arabic to a broken man in a $5,000 suit, I learned that the quiet ones aren't weak. They're just waiting for the right moment to change everything.